All right. So I have Chad and Ashley Lambright on, who are a couple of local dynamite realtors from Coldwell Banker. And I'm just super pumped to have them on today. They are doing a great job in growing their realty business. And I've been fortunate enough to work with them. And like I say, every time that I open up this show, this show really, I don't know, there's really no strict rules as far as who's going to be on, what we're going to talk about. It's really just people that I work with in our community, the Wani community and beyond, really anyone in Michiana that I think is just full of passion and that would be fun to work with. And that most importantly is a safe place to send your friends and family to do business with. And so thanks so much for being on, guys. Super pumped.
For having us.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. And I'm just going to make sure that the cameras are switching back and forth here. So if I look a little distracted, that's why. I think Zoom changed some of their settings. So the first question I wanted to ask you guys is, obviously you're a realtor couple and, you guys probably get this question a lot, or I would imagine that you would, because it's one of the first things I wanted to ask you is, how does that work for you guys as far as, the good, the bad, maybe the ugly? Is it all beneficial? Is there any drawbacks? How's that happen? How's that work?
I would say I went full time 15 months ago, left my job as an RV engineer. And I know that was a big transition time for Ashley and I. And I've been licensed the same amount of time as she has, but she has a lot more experience than me with being full time right away. So I was learning on the fly, asking her a lot of questions as I was going. And I could tell she got frustrated with me a few times. And she's one to look at me and just say, figure it out yourself. Mm-hmm. And you're a big boy, you can do it yourself. And I thank her for that. And there were times where I'm like, seriously, just throw me a bone. Come on, help me out. But I love her to death. She's a great teacher. She's helped me a lot, obviously, and for the most part we work great together, and yeah, it's gone fairly smooth.
Yeah, so how we have it set up right now is I write all the contracts, so everything's technically in my name. It just works a little bit smoother, and then we have that consistency, but we always have two eyes on everything, which is really huge. That's one huge benefit that I tell all of our buyers and also sellers, that you have two people looking after your file at all times, which is really nice. It frees us up too for showing. So different people, and too, personality wise, sometimes Chad might relate better with another family, or I might relate better with another family too. So that's a huge dynamic to our team. So yeah, it's worked out really well.
That's awesome. So do you guys find that it works out well to kind of split responsibilities? Like, is one of you specialize in buyers and the other one specializes in sellers? And if so, why? What is it, your giftings that are kind of different, or?
I prefer buyers. Mm-hmm. I prefer showing houses, creating a relationship with that client at the same time. And then once it gets down to nitty gritty where they're ready to write an offer, and then Ashley will not take over, but she will do most of the paperwork on that end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's more gifted at that than I am.
Yeah. And like selling presentations, getting that seller like in the door, that's kind of more my niche to work with that, just experience wise. And also it depends on that seller. It's all about personality and who is a good fit too, which is huge.
Yeah, that's totally, it kind of seems like clients almost gravitate towards certain realtors, and it's just by nature almost. Do you guys kind of feel that? Just like anywhere else in life, different personalities kind of mesh better than others, So one of the things I've noticed with you guys is that you have a tremendous heart for people. And, just from that very first conversation we had at the coffee shop, in Napanee, I think we both teared up a couple of times, talking about, just our love for people and our mutual faith. We're both Christians. And do you mind talking a little bit about that as far as, what that means to you and how that affects your business and just the way you carry yourself?
Honesty and integrity are the two biggest things that we want to kind of model our daily lives through in our real estate careers also. And back when I made the decision to transition into real estate, I was in the RV industry for 17 years. And one gentleman that I worked with on a weekly basis, he was one of my vendors, very outspoken Christian man. And I remember him kind of challenging me to use this new platform because I'm going to be seeing and talking with people all the time now, and creating relationships with them, and be a Christ-like, use a Christ-like attitude with them, and when the opportunity arises, be a witness to them. And that was a year and a half ago, and I still remember that. And when the opportunity comes up, I do use it. I try to use that platform and just being honest. And yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about that.
Mm-hmm. Honesty is huge. And also for them to be able to trust us. And especially first-time home buyers, there's just so much that can happen. It's the most important, one of the most important decisions that you'll make as a young adult. So we just want to make sure that they make a wise choice, because that will affect them and their family for the rest of their lives if they make a bad choice.
Yeah, totally. And that's kind of what I was touching on, because I've noticed that you have such a huge heart for these people. You're kind of almost naturally like a mother hen, so to speak.
Very true. Yes.
Is that a good way to describe it?
Uh-huh. Yes.
And so you almost kind of are protective of your clients. And I love that. I've noticed that already. And I feel the same way. And, that we should be a safe place to do business, and somewhere that you would, even if somebody comes to you and they just, the house isn't right for them, but you can make some good commission on it. And because you're influenced and because they believe in you, you probably could talk them into it sometimes. And I just don't feel like, I feel like you would never sacrifice your integrity just to make a sale, and I love that. I think that's huge when it comes to being a realtor and someone puts that much trust in you. But that's awesome, Chad, too. Your story, I feel like sometimes as Christians, we kind of over spiritualize, what it means to bring that to our workplace. Like, I know I used to anyway, as a younger Christian, like, well, if I don't talk about Jesus during the transaction, then it's not somehow being a Christian. And I don't, is it St. Augustus, I believe, who said, go throughout the whole world and preach the gospel, but use words when necessary. And so I think a lot of times it's more just, carrying ourselves, the way that we conduct ourselves, and just caring more and loving more, like we're called to. And whether we say it, whether we say, hey, this is because I'm a Christian or not, I think people feel it, So that kind of ties into my next question, I think, anyway, in my opinion. How you've only been doing this for 3 years? Is that right, Ashley?
Yeah, like 3.5.
Unbelievable. And you're like top of the charts all the time. You guys are just killing it. So how did you get so successful so fast? Do you have any pro tips for any other, aspiring realtors or even young entrepreneurs that are wanting some tips?
Yes, definitely. So my big one, because I talk to a lot of people, I even have an intern right now from Fairfield High School that's working with me. So something I talk about is making sure that you make good financial decisions, because when you're in a transaction and things start to head south, you don't want to think, oh my word, I'm not going to have money to feed my family next month if we do not close this transaction. So really trying to be financially sound and having debts paid off so you can run lean. That's what I tell when I'm talking to other people about becoming a realtor. You need to learn to run your life pretty lean in the beginning, because you could easily make $5,000 that whole entire year. Wow. When you first start. And that's one thing. Even after expenses our first year, what we made was extremely minimal. And I worked like a dog. I worked hard. So it's being very careful with your money to start with is important. Also, we would talk to, not necessarily wait. You don't have to wait for people to tell you, oh, I want to buy a house, or, oh, I want you to sell my house. You have to talk to them and get to know them way ahead of that time frame. And sometimes people might be ready to move up and they haven't even talked to their spouse yet. Like you need to kind of talk to them in that time period where they're starting to just think about it, and being able to reach out to people on Facebook or message that old friend from high school. It's huge. So talking, you have to talk to people, not just texting too. Pick up the phone.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is a really good tip for not only realtors, but just anybody who's trying to put themselves out there and start anything new. So that's great. Thank you. So this is something I like to ask pretty much everybody right now, just because it's different for all of us. But, how has COVID affected your business? Not only just the way that you work, but, this late start, I guess, to the summer season. How has that been affected? And do you think that it's going to affect like the winter? Is the winter going to be busier than normal because so many people didn't move that were, would normally move in the summer? We didn't have a normal summer season,
The whole COVID thing, when it all started, I was very worried about it, how it was going to affect real estate. But man alive, we were busier than we had ever been.
Wow.
From April till now. I mean, it was just gangbusters. Busier than we would have liked.
So you're saying it actually didn't negatively affect you?
No, we're like over 3 million in sales ahead
of what we were last
year.
Wow. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
And there were a few, probably 3.
We had only one transaction fall through. And that, it wasn't even technically COVID. It was someone just backing up because they got nervous.
Yeah.
Because of COVID.
Wow.
So we had a lot of transactions that were supposed to be like 30 days that stretched out to 60. We've had a lot of that, and too with the refinancing now. That's kind of where we're at. It's not a COVID delay, but with technology, there's so many options that you can do. So
Correct.
We
did quite a few video chats, not chats, but video showings. And we're actually doing this afternoon again, where someone's not comfortable going and looking at a house in person. We will walk through the house and do a video showing with them.
No way. Is that live, like on FaceTime, or what do you use for that? What technology?
FaceTime usually FaceTime.
That's
or Facebook Messenger. If it's not working, I mean, you can do that. You can do a Zoom. I mean, there's so many platforms that you can use.
That's incredible.
We have out of town clients all the time too. So we're doing another one too. Someone's from Virginia. So we have to do a Zoom for her.
That's pretty cool. You talk about like using modern technology. I thought it was kind of crazy that one of my buddies sold somebody a Jeep during COVID, brand new, Jeep Wrangler, and delivered it to their house in Elkhart, and they never even came and looked. They never even came and drove it. They never came and looked at it. To me, that seems like a little scary unless like you really have seen them before. So, I mean, would somebody buy a house without ever seeing it, like stepping foot in it? Is that a thing?
I've heard of that happening. It has not happened for us. Correct?
So you kind of whet their appetite with the video walkthrough, but eventually they're gonna come see it, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. That's still super convenient though, obviously, for them to not waste time going to look at, 20 houses during COVID. They can just go and look at it when they're pretty sure that's the one they want. Yeah,
there were so many things that we did to help protect our clients. Just with Coldwell Banker, I mean, they were very adamant and told us what we needed to do. So, I mean, all of our clients did feel safe, and different people wanted to have different levels of security. So it was important just to acknowledge kind of where they were at and how they felt to make them feel comfortable. But even with documents, everything can be electronic. So there didn't need to be a lot of face-to-face physical interaction.
Oh, that's awesome. I wanted to touch on something because we already talked about, your passion. Obviously, you'll take all kinds of buyers, all kinds of sellers. It's not that you want to just focus on first time buyers, but it's something that I would probably gravitate towards, sending you first time buyers because of that mother hen sort of thing, as far as you looking out for them. What's some good advice? Because I know you probably have a ton of this, and what's some good advice that you'd give to first time buyers, when you're kind of preparing them?
Getting a pre-approval letter is one thing that we always ask our clients to do, regardless if they're new or this is their fourth or fifth time buying a house. And then having sufficient funds set aside for closing costs.
Mm-hmm.
In today's market, it's important a conventional loan is always preferred. And then if you don't have to have seller's assistance, that puts your offer above others that would need seller's assistance.
Yeah.
We've had.
That's good. And hey, Chad, just for people who aren't familiar, maybe first time buyers that are watching this, what is seller's assistance? What does that mean?
It's all the closing costs. So it would be when the seller gives you a credit towards your lender fees, towards the appraisal, towards inspections, because into first time home buyers, it's about 3%. I usually like to tell people that gauge maybe 2.5% because they'll get a credit for taxes. So, and also too, I always try to bring up how important the taxes are for that specific house. And depending on how tight we are with the numbers, you have to have a good relationship with the lender too. You give that to the lender so they can double check everything to make sure that the house is definitely going to be a fit for them before you put an offer in. That's huge. Like, you have to make sure it's a good fit. And I always tell them, yes, the market's very hot, but we need to have everything in order so you can make a good offer and make a good choice so you don't regret it later.
Yeah.
Another thing we like to talk, go ahead.
No, you're good. I want to hear what you were going to say.
Another thing that I like to stress to the younger generation is you may have a great job making six digits or whatever, but if you have 2 car payments and a motorcycle payment and your debt to income ratio is backwards, you need to do something about that before you even think about getting into a house. You need to sell that motorcycle or pay it off before you can even think about getting into a house.
Yeah.
If we send them to someone like you,
sorry, Chad.
I mean, if we send them to a lender like Alex, it's going to, they're going to say the same thing, that your income, your debt to income ratio is way off. And
that is something that has kind of blown me away. Since I've gotten in the mortgage industry, is that you can have, and this is probably the clients that get the most frustrated are the clients that are wealthier, and they say, listen, I have $1 million in the bank. I've actually had someone say this, I have $1 million in the bank. I could buy that house twice if I wanted to. And I'm like, it's so hard because I feel for them. It's like, yes, you can, but you're asking for a loan. And so one of the things that really kind of struck me is it doesn't really matter how much money you have in the bank, unless you're obviously going to buy it with cash. What matters is, like, because you just touched on this, the money coming in, right, which is your income, versus the money going out, which is your debt load. And the other funny thing is, like you said, the motorcycle, the couple car payments, is that, within the system is that, say your motorcycle payment's $350 a month, but you only owe $1,000 on it. So the way that the system sees that is that it's just as bad as having a $300 a month payment that has $30,000 left on it. So sometimes it's super easy just to wipe out a $300 payment. It's only $1,000. We actually just did that yesterday. Someone barely qualified and they had probably about 5 debts that were around like $35 to $50 a month, but it adds up, so that is one of the interesting things, Chad, just like you said, is that, it's about the monthly outlay of cash that you got to put out there. So that's a good tip for first time buyers. You might have to get rid of a toy or two if you're still making payments on it, or you might even have to sell one on Craigslist or whatever to get your down payment money.
Yep.
No, but thanks for explaining that, guys, because that's a question that I get a lot is, what is seller's assistance? Are you seeing a lot of that right now? Or, okay, let me put it this way. I'm gonna kind of put you guys on the buyer side, and then I'm gonna put you on the seller side. So if you're instructing one of your buyers, is that kind of like a no-go zone right now? Like asking for seller's assistance? Are you scared to do that because of multiple offer situations?
If a house has been on the market for a while,
It's more acceptable.
it's more acceptable. And I'll flat out tell them that. If it's going in, I mean, I have a house right now that we have 2 offers in. It was listed Monday, and one person's asking for 3% closing costs. The other offer is $2,000 over with no assistance.
Oh,
The
wow.
other one has an escalation, 10,000 over asking. We're not, yeah.
It's
The
a
seller's,
no-brainer,
yeah, seller's assistance is huge.
Yes. Okay, so let's break that down real quick because that was a lot to take in. So this is your buyer,
My
right?
Seller.
Sorry.
Oh, it's your seller. Okay, and you got an offer that was full at the one with the asking for seller's assistance that was full asking. So, but they want some help with closing costs, right? And then you got another offer that's 2,000 over with an escalation clause. So, can you explain that just to people that don't understand what that means?
Yeah, so the one that's asking for seller's assistance is an escalation. So it's basically you put your cap that you would be willing to pay for that house, and it goes up in specific increments. So let's say you want to buy $100,000 house, you're willing to go up to 110,000 and over someone else's offer for their total offer by $1,000. So if someone doesn't have any closing costs, it would be 100,000, but if someone needs 3,000 in closing costs, their offer is actually 97,000. So it drops that offer. So yeah, the escalation is just a good way to pop over someone else's offer, but the house does have to appraise. That's one thing I always tell people.
Yeah, that's interesting. So why wouldn't, I guess I'm just thinking here, right? Why wouldn't everyone put an escalation clause in? Because you're not wasting money, right? So like if somebody's offer is 100 and I offer 97 with an escalation up to 110, you're not going to use all 110, right? I just go over by 1,000 to win, kind of like in the eBay days.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
Okay.
As long as the house is worth that. And that's one thing that I stress for my sellers and my buyers, that we can't go over what the market dictates. So you don't want to go $20,000 over. It won't come through.
Yeah.
So.
Because you're worried that the appraisal won't find the value there.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes sense. So now to flip you kind of on the other side, right? If you're writing an offer, are you scared to include seller's assistance because it might get tossed out? Or are you still writing offers with asking for seller's assistance if the person doesn't have enough money?
We'll write them if that's what the pre-approval letter calls for.
Like what if okay, let me phrase it this way. I should have said it in a better way. What if you know that this house is hot, it's just on the market, and you think that you're going to run into like five different offers situation? Are you going to kind of, and your seller technically has the money, are you going to kind of encourage them, don't try to put that in there? I'm curious to see like how you guys see this in the realtor world. Like, is it kind of, one of those things that could make you lose the house that you want?
Yeah, if they have the cash, we really stress that they just need to use it. Or if we can increase the purchase price a little bit. I've had a couple people that we've gone up $2,000 and then asked for a little assistance. That makes a little bit more sense than asking for the full amount. So usually that $2,000 really does help because a lot of people, it's just tight and they want that extra funds for furniture or just moving expenses for when they close. So
yeah. That's awesome. So what are you guys seeing in the Wauwanii market right now? What's it look like? I know we had a huge shortage, not just us, nationwide. There's a huge shortage of houses for sale. Is that changing at all as people aren't quite as, people are still worried about COVID, right? But I feel like people are relaxing a little bit. Are we seeing more houses on the market or about the same?
I'd say it's about the same. It hasn't changed up or down in the past few months.
Yeah, we definitely have a huge shortage. We have a lot of people that might be ready to move out. So they've raised their family. They are still living in that big house. We see that a lot right now, and they just don't know where they want to go right now. They don't know if they want to go to Florida. They don't know if they want to go to a condo. So we have a huge shortage still, definitely. And I don't feel like my buyers or sellers are extremely nervous in regards to COVID. More maybe a seller that might be higher risk, and then you need to just take those precautions that are helpful. But yeah, I still see a huge shortage.
I think a lot of sellers or potential sellers are pumping the brakes because they know their house will sell quick, but where are they going to go if they can't find a house? Are they going to have to shack up with mom and dad for a month or two and wait it out? I mean, that's not an ideal situation, but I mean, I think that's a big factor right now also.
And that's a huge thing about having a realtor to help you guide you through. Picking some person, even if it's not us, you need to find someone that can work with you. Don't try to do it on your own, because then you're going in circles, and then 2 years down the road, you still don't have a new house and you're still stuck. So having commitment to someone that's going to work for you, show you properties that, just being willing to show you a lot of different ones. I like to tell people too, because we have a lot of clients that want acreage. Most of the auctioneer companies will work with me too. So that's huge. Most of them don't know that. I grew up going to auctions, so I love it. My dad would take us to stuff. So yeah, I'm used to it. So there's lots of different ways that you can have someone working for you.
Yeah, that's interesting. We had an auction, I think, about a couple miles away from my house recently. And I thought this was kind of interesting, as a lender. This is, and I'm sure you guys have heard this too, but there was, I think, 20 acres and then a pretty small house. But in order to get a loan on that house, you got to find the value in the house itself, which is kind of interesting. So like you can't buy, geez, what did that sell for? I want to say it sold for like 400,000. So you can't actually, I can't lend somebody all of the money just based on the land. It would become like an agricultural type loan. The house has to carry the value. It has to appraise for the majority of the value on the house, but the house was only worth probably less than 100 grand. So that drastically cuts down the amount of borrowers or the amount of buyers right there. I mean, you're talking about probably almost a full cash offer, unless somebody wants to, take out $100,000 mortgage on the house and then buy the land with cash. So that's something interesting that I think we run into in our area, because we have so much farmland, and we have, so many people that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. We have so many people that, obviously don't have $400,000 in cash just to buy the land, but it was a highly desirable, and I think it was a full cash offer at the auction. So that was interesting. One of the things I also wanted to ask you guys was, in this market, hold on a sec here. In this market, are you guys encouraging people to, kind of wait out the storm and see if, the values will increase after COVID? Because I've heard of people strategically saying, because the shortage that they're going to, after COVID's kind of up, that they think that the house prices are going to pop up a little bit.
I've seen house prices go up this whole entire time. And if you look at the statistics, I mean, I just pulled it from another lender. There's a huge increase from last year. So this spring this summer compared to last year. So it's basic statistics. It's pretty easy to pull, and I'll gladly show them to them. But interest rates are just so good right now too. Our house alone, I joke around with Chad, the value's gone up tremendously in 6 months. We finished our full kitchen remodel literally the week before COVID, before shutdown, and had it appraised right after. And so the value has gone up a ton just from, if we would go sell it today. So I think it's still going to go up.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of crazy? Because it's like the values keep going up, which is just, simple economics, I guess, because there's a shortage of supply. But at some point, it's like, are they going to be worth so much that they don't appraise for that much? Or do you think appraisers are going to start adjusting, like, they really are worth that much because the market's demanding that much? But then you got to worry about comps too, right? So I don't know. It just seems kind of weird. It's like, I always used to say, well, I always used to be told, I guess, when I was in my baseball, sports card trading days, is that something is worth however much somebody's willing to pay for it. That's not always the case kind of in our industry, because the appraiser comes in and has to say it really is worth that much. So what have you guys seen any issues with that lately? Like houses just not meeting appraisals, but like the people think it's worth that much and they're willing to pay that much, but the appraisal can't quite get there?
Yeah, we had one great example, a house in Goshen. We had 12 offers on it, which is absolutely crazy. So 12 solid offers on one property.
Oh my God.
And it went 20 grand over asking. And a buyer decided it was my listing. The buyer said, okay, I know it probably will not appraise. I will pay up to $10,000 over the appraisal value.
Wow.
And sure enough, it did not appraise. I mean, right away, I was like, there's no way it will ever appraise. But yeah, they were able to cut us a check then to help cover it. So that was huge.
Wow.
But yeah, the demand obviously was there. But also that appraiser was very wise because he was dead on with what I said. So, I mean, it worked out well. But the appraisers are doing as best as they can right now. There's just not a lot of comparables. So sometimes, I mean, focusing on areas that are similar, that's huge. Also not comparing. I've seen some appraisals that are like, oh, they're comparing a ranch house to a 2-story house. That's a big problem. Or a house with no basement to a house that's a basement, and you're only giving it $5,000. That's not comparable. I mean, yeah. Alex, you just built a house. You know how much a basement costs? Like, it's crazy. Yeah. So, and also you have to be willing to challenge those. So that's one thing that we've really tried to step up our game when we have problems, to be ready to challenge the appraisal.
Yes. So you just mentioned about building a house, right? So from talking to all my, construction friends, prices are through the roof and they're having a hard time finding materials. I mean, even the RV industry is having a hard time finding materials to build an RV. So you can imagine when you're building a house, a lot of the same materials. So prices of a 2x4 have gone up 3 times since I built my house. I'm sorry, not that they've raised 3 different times. It's literally the price of a 2x4 is 3 times more expensive than it was like just before COVID. So what I'm trying to see, and like what I'm trying to figure out, and I'm just asking people who are smarter than me and who are, builders, is if people start pumping the brakes on building, then obviously the house that they're occupying, isn't going to be for sale. So, or could you look at it like, since there's not going to be as much building, then that puts even more demand on the houses that are already here. You know what I mean? So and we still got the low interest rates. So I don't know. I just talked to someone yesterday who's pumped up about building. So obviously people are still building, but I mean, what do you guys think about all that as far as that, is that how that's going to affect us?
Yeah, some people are definitely still building. I have a client that they'll be closing on a new construction next month, but they're seeing a huge and this was a house like a model home, so they didn't have any say in it, which is fine. It works great for them, and it's a cute house, definitely. But we're seeing people that are very concerned about building, and I always tell people you need to have a budget, but you need to be prepared for a shock at the end, right, Alex?
Yes.
So with that being said, you just need to be prepared for that. But yeah, we're seeing that it's a cycle with houses. I mean, we need more and more houses, so we have to still get houses built. I would love like a condo development. So that's a huge thing we have a lot of people that are parents' age who are looking to downsize, and we just don't have enough available right now, especially in our community in Wani District.
Yeah.
I would love one. Our kids go to Fairfield School District. There's nothing over there.
Wow.
There's nothing. So that would be amazing to have a place for people to live that have less maintenance.
Yeah.
Under the 250 mark would be stellar. So
yeah, and I know that, you know, obviously if you have a hard time getting supplies to build, that's one thing, right? And then what are you going to do about it? But as far as, and I think the supplies are probably starting to pick up again since the lumber mills are back functioning. And so we'll see obviously a backlog, and then, you know, they'll start catching up on their supply. But I guess if you think about it, right, that's a little scary to build because of that, but interest rates are still crazy low. And so 5 to 10 years from now, you're still going to be, you know, having a 2.5% or a 2.75, or, you know, even anything under 3% is insane, you know? So I guess, okay, you're paying 2 to 3 times more for a 2x4, but, you know, you're not at 5% interest where you were. So if you'd run the math on that, you're probably not, it's not like you're going to totally regret the decision. But yeah, you have a good point there, Ashley, as far as watching your budget when you build. You know, with my other company, Pro IT Solutions, we work with a lot of people who are in the building process because we're talking about the technology that they might want in the home and whatnot. So I thought that would really prepare me for when it was time to build, because I've basically been a counselor between a husband and a wife when they're talking about whether they want a home theater or not. And I've had to break up some fights in my office. But so I just went into, you know, when I went into building, I said to Natalie, I was just like, man, you know, we really have to have a budget, and we have to, well, it doesn't matter. It's just, you can throw it all out the window. You can be as prepared as you want to, but it's like, you keep thinking to yourself, this is my one time to do it right, you know, for most things. I mean, for something, like, you're not just going to willy-nilly go replace your hardwood floors, you know, one day. So on the things that are probably not going to change in the next 10, 20, 30 years, you really kind of want to get the nicer thing. And then, yeah, maybe you can kind of wait on finishing the basement, right? Or maybe you can wait on doing the pole barn or whatever it is. But yeah, I feel for anybody building. No matter how good your builder is. And plus we were pregnant at the same time. So we had our youngest Archie towards the very end, and we were living with my parents because we had to move out of our house a little sooner than we thought. And there was a lot of things colliding at once, but I don't envy people who are building. It's a super exciting process. Obviously it's a fun process, but super duper stressful. So I do encourage marriage counseling at the same time as building.
Great idea.
Yeah, I should have a sponsor from a marriage counselor on this show, maybe. So anyway, guys, I do try to keep these a little bit short because I know you guys are super busy, and I tend to ramble on. But I'm super pumped to have you guys on, and I love having you guys as realtor partners. I would, in full confidence, send anybody your guys' way any day, because it just, you're going to treat them like family. You know, this is a small town. Everybody knows each other. And even if it wasn't a big town, it's not like, you know, you would compromise your integrity then anyway. But even in a smaller town, it's like, it's just good to know people that you trust and that are going to treat your clients well, because a referral, you know, ultimately does come back on you, right? If you're going to give somebody a strong referral and say, hey, listen, I know that Ashley and Chad are awesome to work with, they're going to take care of you. You know, it's your reputation too. So I just thank you guys for being that realtor couple that, like, I totally trust to send clients to, and that I know are going to be treated well. And especially if they're a first time home buyer, Ashley's going to be treating them like it's her own child. So thank you for being that in our community, and just everything else that you guys do, and just being just a bright, shining star in our community. I really appreciate it. And that's why I had you on.
Oh, thanks, Alex. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're
and
welcome.
I love how you're very thorough especially with the first time home buyers, or even people that have been through the process before. That's been very helpful.
Thank you.
And they really appreciate it. So
thank you. That's one thing I didn't realize that I would enjoy as much as I do, because I have only been doing this for a little less than a year. I have an amazing team, and I have a processor in my office, Jen Kripe, who I'm super lucky to have. She probably gets a little annoyed at my questions sometimes, but she's really patient with me because I mean, it's like having an underwriter in your office. I can ask her anything and she pretty much knows it, or can point me in the right direction. But I was a little surprised at how much I would like educating people. You know, I really do. And it's fun because I guess when I'm done giving the advice, it's fun being helpful for one, but it's kind of like, I'm kind of like, wow, I actually know some stuff, you know, because it's humbling. You feel like you're learning this industry, but I talk to people who have been loan officers for 20, 30 years, and they're like, dude, every day I learn something new. So for me, somebody who gets bored kind of easily, and, you know, I'm a little ADD, a little easily distracted. It's nice to have something that keeps me on my toes every day. So I appreciate the compliment. I love the first time home buyers too. I love all my clients, but my favorite part is educating for sure. So, but hey guys, real quick, if somebody does want to get a hold of you, obviously they can probably Google you, but what's the best way to get a hold of you? Is it through email, phone call, text?
Phone call, text
Phone or
are great.
text,
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And what number do you prefer?
My cell phone is 574-238-0208, and Chad's is 574-536-8859.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And a text is fine too. You welcome a
Oh yeah,
text?
totally
Definitely.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And I'm going to be sure to have you guys on again for sure, just to check in on you and give us you know, a little update on the Wauwanee community and beyond, as how things are going.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Alex.
Yeah, thanks
Take
a lot.
care.
Have a good one.
You
You
too.
too.